driving on stormy nights can become so difficult that you may wish you had the eyes of a night creature, like an owl or a tarsier. What's a tarsier? Well, it's like a... Look, it doesn't matter. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades reduce blur and glare, clearing away rain, so you can drive even better than a tarsier, whatever that is. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where they're, I think, clearly the best Group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great Group of 5 conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sun Belt these days.
Very excited about the Sun Belt.
We started the Sun Belt back in '76, and I'm very proud of what has transpired through the years.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
Edit that out, Dusty.
We're expecting a very physical game with Houston, and it's the way Coach Sampson's teams play. Certainly we got that. We knew that it'd be an issue on the glass. I mean, we worked at it. We're a pretty good rebounding team, too. Our starting center didn't dress tonight like a couple of their guys didn't dress, and a guard of ours as well. But they did a great job on the offensive boards. They outquicked us every 50-50 ball in the first half, and they deserved the lead they had. Second half, we battled. Got back in the game, got it to 7, had 2 possessions in a row. We had clean looks at threes that we missed that would have cut it to 4 and could have possibly had a really good finish on our hands. But weren't good enough tonight. They beat us to loose balls. They beat us in the glass bad. And
one area you did kind of excel in is keeping them off the three-point shot. Was that something that y'all saw to kind of extend that defensive set?
Well, they're so good at offensive rebounding. They can rebound those just as well. But, we tell our guys, I told them this week, the game starts when the ball's in the air, or hits the rim, because they're just very strong rebounding team. And three-point shots are coming off, too. We know they can make them. Sasser doesn't play tonight. That certainly helps our cause. I think he's a dynamic guard. It's playing really well for them and one of their better scorers. So, but I thought she played good, did a nice job, and they didn't shoot the 3. As you said, they made 1 in each half. But also thought Taz Moore stepped up in a big way in the first half. I thought he was a big part of their lead.
You guys get it within 7. You finished 1 for 13 down the stretch at that point. Was it something they did? Do you feel like you just ran out of gas? What was it?
Well, just we missed a couple, but I think it's more of what they did. We come out with a loose ball or a long rebound, and we go down, and we've got a chance. One of our better players has a chance to make a layup, and they pin it off the glass and go down and score, right? So stuff like that, it's nothing we did. It's a credit to Houston. Their athleticism and strength, But we needed to make more shots, obviously.
Another tough non-conference schedule. How does this really help prepare your team as conference schedule starts here in about 2 weeks?
Certainly, we feel like it can help. Playing a team, we played Alabama earlier, ironically, and then to play Houston, and appreciate Coach Sampson having us over. We were going to play this game last year, in case you guys didn't know, and it got pushed out because of COVID. But opportunity to improve. I mean, we won't play a better rebounding team than this one, all year, unless we play them again in the NCAA tournament, because they're as good as anybody in the country. But a good experience for our guys to go into a tough environment and battle.
Tough game, but really a tale of two halves. They really kind of jumped out to a big lead there in the first half. Y'all made it close in the second half. How did y'all kind of make that adjustment at halftime?
Yeah, the main thing was just boxing out and getting defensive rebounds. Because, in the first half, they had, 15 offensive rebounds. And so Coach told us to block out. And I was in the scouting report all week, so we just started blocking out and running in transition.
A great experience coming to Houston, top 25 team. How does this really get y'all prepared down the stretch for Sunbelt Conference games?
Yeah, it was big for us just knowing that we could play with anybody, getting it that close down to 7. Just being able to stay together throughout the course during conference so we could play with anybody. So it gave us confidence this game.
Welcome into FunBelt Podcast. As you heard from Louisiana Lafayette head coach Bob Marlin and guard Kentrell Garnett, they fall last night to Houston, 71-56. Jeremy, our hype of Super Tuesday for Sunbelt Conference basketball, you heard Coach Marlin say it. They're not going to play a team better than that once the conference starts, but for right now, it's kind of a bloodbath, and that's exactly what we saw this week early on in conference basketball.
Yes, but let's take a breath. Let's step back just a little bit. Yes, it would have been great on Super Tuesday if all those 3 big games that came up, it was Louisiana versus number 14 Houston. It was Arkansas State versus number 25 Texas Tech. And then Georgia State, which is supposed to be one of the best teams in the Sun Belt against Mississippi State. So we were hoping for a great performance from one of those 3. Plus, the let's go ahead and win these others that came through on Super Tuesday. And it did happen. But stepping back, let's take a breath. Going to somebody's home court is always tough, Thibodeaux. I mean, what was that environment like? You were there at the Houston game. What was that environment like?
I can tell you this, Jeremy. Last night, going to the Fertitta Center on the campus of Houston.
Yeah.
I got to see how the other half live, and I'll tell you, I like how the other half live. That is a fantastic, intimate stadium.
Yeah, nice champagne and caviar.
And they had a champagne fountain in mid-court. You got to walk out there and dip your crystal into it. No, it was great, well lit, well produced game. Obviously, not the outcome that we wanted because we wanted to see a Sunbelt upset in it. But man, there's no doubt in my mind that they don't belong in the Big 12 after seeing that facility there at the Fertitta Center.
Well, let's face it, Houston has always been, they have had great football programs, but Houston, in my mind, when I think of Houston, I always think of big basketball programs. Kudos for Louisiana for clawing back at one point. It looked like Louisiana might have a chance to make a game of it. Then I guess it slipped away, right?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Houston was on fire the first half, but really it was a tale of two halves. I think the Cajuns just had too much of a hole to try to overcome, get the lead in the second half, did get it to within 6. Able to hold the Cougars, though, to 2 of 11 from three-point land. Basically, the Cougars made one in each half of the game, and that was it. That was it from the outside. The rest was inside. Some great dunks on the night. It was a good little slam dunk competition. But enough of that. We had a couple more losses before we get to the big wins that we did have in the Sun Belt Conference.
All right, yeah.
You mentioned Mississippi State beat Georgia State 79-50. Panthers were not even in the game.
Yes, and our colleague Ben Moore, we kind of saw him via Twitter kind of commenting on the game, and you can tell he was a bit dismayed, and I'm a bit dismayed. Mississippi State comes in not exactly knocking down buckets in the way that some of these other teams have. You think, well, maybe the Panthers, who have come into the Sun Belt or came into the season with some pretty big expectations. and they just can't seem to get it together, whether it's COVID protocols that they can't seem to follow, whether I think they have some injuries going on, now getting blown out by Mississippi State. In addition, I believe they got blown out by Richmond. And now you wonder, is Georgia State really in a state to compete coming into Sun Belt play at the end of the month?
Yeah, I mean, they shoot 32% on the night there in Stark Vegas, of which 26% was in the first half. It was an ugly shooting game. And I get it that those games are going to happen. You just have to try to limit those and bounce back.
Yeah, so anyway, not a great game for the Sun Belt or definitely for Georgia State. You wonder what's going on inside the program, if there's some doubts. But who knows? Once you get back in the Sun Belt play, it's always a different story. But I'd like to talk a little bit about a certain game that happened between my Arkansas State Red Wolves and number 25 Texas Tech.
They lost, just to let that cat out of the bag.
They did lose. Yeah. And all right, so you go into a game with Texas Tech, ranked 25th. They just came off a big win against the Volunteers. I think they've got one loss on the season. Last time Arkansas State played Texas Tech, Arkansas State won. It happened in the early 90s on a last-second three-pointer. That was actually when I was in college at that time. So we came over to Lubbock, Arkansas State did, and played toe-to-toe for about, 10 minutes. And then Texas Tech said, okay, we're going to put 20 points on you. So at halftime, Arkansas State was down 20 points. And I thought, all right, well, this is when we lose by 40. But quite frankly, Arkansas State made an adjustment at halftime, which is something you don't always see. We had our big guy, Norchad Omir, who had foul trouble early on. The big scorer, Desi Sills, could not find a bucket, but he ended up finding other ways to contribute. It was really actually a good team effort. Ended up losing by 13. It's just something that, you look at on paper, isn't a very good score. But going into Lubbock against the number 12 team in the country, I saw a team with the Red Wolves that, to me, had some skills. Especially Norchad Omir delivered a thunder rejection, which you might see it on ESPN. That was just off the charts. Not a victory. Again on Super Tuesday, not getting the results we were hoping for. There was no such thing as moral victories. You know what that is, Thibodeaux?
FCS mentality?
That's FCS mentality. So, yeah, that sucked. But
does that apply in basketball? Can you have FCS mentality in basketball?
I don't know, because quite frankly, it seems like everybody is a Division I basketball program now with 360 programs. I mean, what could you call FCS and what can you not? I mean, maybe call it Division II mentality. I don't know how you would call that.
Our friends down in Troy took a page out of the Arkansas State book, and they took on the SWACs, Alabama A&M, had a pretty good game, won the contest 66-57. Another good tune-up there for the Trojans as they get ready for the Sun Belt Conference play, as they had 35 points off the bench. A great team effort and really impressive there of what Scott Cross has done and really getting them ready for their conference opener, Texas State, to play in San Marcos.
I think Texas State should be a little bit worried about that game. I mean, I don't know if Troy's in position this year to compete, but they're certainly in position to make you work. Scott Cross is going to make sure of that. It seems like, that was a big taking care of business win. They got the win. We've seen SWAC teams come up and swat you before, so good for Scott Cross. That's just one of those teams that I know that I'm going to look forward to seeing, but also with a little bit of dread when they come meet Arkansas State.
South Alabama gets the big win there over Tarleton State.
But Tarleton was up at halftime. That was a little bit spooky for South Bama.
But I tell you, I think that Tarleton State, first of all, is a lot better than people are going to give them credit for. They're in the process of moving over into the WAC. Or are they now in the Conference USA? See, they've moved so many times, no one knows who they are or where they are. But
I have to admit, I don't know them very well. I don't know them at all.
The Texans.
Well, anyway, that was, though, another take care of business win. Now, South Bama, scared probably at the end of the first half, wondered perhaps if they were going to get sort of clocked and clobbered by a team they should be able to put away. It doesn't look like that happened. Good for South Alabama.
Biggest win on the night, your ULM Warhawks go to Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
The Lumberjacks had only lost 3 times in the past 3 years. You can now make it 4 times in 4 years as the Warhawks pull off the 82-69 win. Nico with 21 points, a game high, and that included 4 of 6 from three-point land. Really a good dominating performance there for the Warhawks in this contest.
Yeah, you know what? You looked at Super Tuesday, and you're like, okay, we got some big games here, and you kind of overlooked that ULM Lumberjacks game, and you shouldn't, because the Stephen F. Austin has been in the tournament of recently and have been pretty damn good. So now you've got a pretty good win there for ULM, who was not doing well in the net rankings, probably picked up a really good win there, and now maybe a team that you can look at and say, okay, these guys are in for business.
Not part of Super Tuesday was Coastal Carolina, but they did have a big win earlier in the week when they downed old SoCon rival Wofford 60-59. It was actually a late shot that got the Chants back on top and getting that good key victory in that game.
Yeah, I was monitoring that through Twitter. And it looked like Coastal Carolina had that game in the bag late. And then suddenly it was like, we've lost the lead. And I was a little shocked by that. So it looked like Cliff Ellis managed to sort of circle the wagons and find a way at the end there to climb out of that hole and win the game. Congratulations to Cliff. That just is, to me, that's just a good indication of just how professional Cliff Ellis is and how he can get his team to kind of calm down and essentially put that ribbon onto the gift at the very end instead of just completely falling apart. So once again, here's another team, Tibbs, the Coastal Carolina, which we kind of thought early in the season might not be as competitive as they have been in the past. Here they are looking kind of tough.
With that said, Super Tuesday, we didn't get the major upsets like we expected.
No, we didn't.
But I think if we rewind to football season, one of the surprise teams that really was out there that we did get some surprise wins, the surprise of them shooting out of the gate at 3-0 was the South Alabama Jaguars.
Absolutely.
Joining us now is going to be the man that oversaw the Jags rise in the early part of the season. He's just the 3rd head coach in that program's history, and that is Kane Wommack. So welcome in, Coach.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
Good.
Doing all right. Yes. Kane Wommack is in our green room. He's eaten all of our Slim Jims. He's eaten all of our Ritz crackers. He's had all of our beer. We're going to have to go shopping again.
How did you know I like Slim Jims?
What coach doesn't?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you stick the Slim Jims in the beer and then you twirl it around, you know what I mean, like a straw or whatever, it's pretty good.
I think that's how you get protein in your beer. I mean, beer is all wheat, right? That's just carbs. You put a little protein in there, and then you've got a health shake.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Kane Wommack, congratulations. You're back in the Sun Belt. You started in the Sun Belt, from what I understand, right? You with South Bama, but you came by way of Arkansas as a player. So you know the South very well. You left for a time, and now you're back in Mobile. What drew you back to Mobile, which I think is one of the best cities in the South?
Yeah, I feel like, so I was here before as Joey Jones defense coordinator. I was fortunate enough, I was the D coordinator at Eastern Illinois, where Tony Romo played, all that stuff. And I got a call from Joey at 28 years old, and he gave me an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator down here. And my wife, Melissa, and I mean, we fell in love with the city. It's got, this is where Mardi Gras originated. I always kind of break it up into like, it's a part Southern hospitality, a part, family friendly, New Orleans, that kind of deal. And then you've got that coastal vibe, right? So there's a lot of things going on in a very diverse city with a lot of great commerce and all that stuff. And really South Alabama has benefited from that, right? Being a part of a city and our medical healthcare system, all that stuff is really great. Now, fast forward, right? You get all these resources put into, $100 million in football facilities and, new stadium, new indoor facility, We have a game day locker room. We have a practice locker room. I mean, how many group of 5 programs get to say all that stuff? So it's really cool. And all of a sudden, here you are also in a very talent-rich area with a great recruiting footprint and a place that I feel very connected to. So, I mean, Mobile is my favorite city, man. It's the place that I knew whenever the opportunity came to come back to Mobile, I was going to take it. And I didn't know it was going to happen this fast, but at the same time, it's pretty great, man. And we love being here.
Coach Wommack, I was thinking about South Alabama. I got to visit Mobile in a bowling capacity for several years when Arkansas State would come down to Mobile, and that's where I fell in love with the city. But I was thinking about how tough it must be to recruit in Alabama in terms of you've got so many programs out there looking for the same recruits. Not only do you have Alabama and Auburn out there, you got the Troys, you got the UABs. It's just a crowded market. How does Kane Wommack? How do you penetrate the sort of the constant din of recruiting to get the guys you want?
Yeah, here I think when you look at the landscape of recruiting now, right? And now you've added in the transfer portal, and that's a completely different dynamic, right? So I think for high school players, we talk about narrowing the scope, right? And we use the line from the movie The Patriot, right? Aim small, miss small, right? So if you bring guys in that that are close to your recruiting footprint, you have great connections in terms of your network of coaches with the staff that we brought in here. And every kid that, for example, every kid that just committed to us and signed with us today from the high school, they came here in the summertime, they worked out for us, they did, they ran a 40, we got their height, weight, 40 time, they did a position meeting, we made them regurgitate that information back to us. Like, we know exactly what we're getting from these guys, right? And so I think, when you talk about, okay, how do you find your niche? You become great evaluators. And when you find somebody, you make sure you get them on campus. And if they don't come on our campus, then you don't take their commitment. And so I think that, to me, you look at Mississippi, you look at Alabama, a little part of the panhandle of Florida, Major Applewhite, our offensive coordinator, and Michael Smith are Major's from Baton Rouge, Smitty's from New Orleans. So you get a little bit of connection recruiting in that area. And so you go where you know people, and then you evaluate.
So, Coach, it's right at the 1-year anniversary of you becoming the 3rd head coach at South Alabama.
Yeah.
What'd you learn this year?
Well, you always know what this place can be, first and foremost, right? And that's what people talk about, this program being a sleeping giant and an untapped resource and all these other things, right? At the end of the day, right, at some point you got to win football games and you got to start becoming that championship program that people are talking about. And 5-7 is not good enough, right? That's not the expectation here. That's not what we're capable of doing. And yet at the same time, you take some momentum from the games that we played, and you look at the standard bearers in our league of Louisiana right now, and we miss a field goal with 40 seconds to beat them, right? Lose 21-20. Lose in double overtime to Coastal Carolina at the end of the season. All those opportunities that you have, you go, okay, all right, I can see where we're moving forward, and we need to continue to do some things in terms of roster management and improving at certain spots. But the foundation is good here, right? And I think it's something that we can really build off of moving forward. You look at facilities, you look at resources, you look at, recruiting footprint and all those things, and the energy that is starting to surround our program from the people of Mobile and the surrounding areas, and you go, okay, this place can be everything that I thought it was going to be when I took the job a year ago.
Yeah, so it's kind of segueing off of that. When you were a coordinator, when you were an assistant at South Alabama, at first you guys were playing at Ladd People Stadium, which, by the way, I love Ladd People Stadium. I'm one of the few people who do. It's just a old pile of asbestos made only for football, That's what I like about it. There's nothing fancy about it. You get there, you watch football. It's great. There's no restaurants or luxury boxes or anything like that. It's just a great place to play football. But that being said, moved into the brand new stadium. It was sort of last year was they officially had the new stadium, but it didn't feel like because of COVID that it was
soft opening, right?
Right. Yeah. Soft launch. So, and then you get the new facilities. How stoked are recruits when they see these new facilities popping up in Mobile?
Well, I think that's why, right? You get some of these players, we get LaDamian Webb, who was Mr. Alabama, a running back a couple years ago, right? He comes down here last week, or Carter Bradley, who was a starting quarterback at Toledo. And then they come down here, and I think they're blown away when they see this, right? And I'll be honest with you, when they flew me down here, I had been here before, right? Like I had seen a lot of these things, but it's just completely different now when you add Hancock Whitney Stadium or our Jaguar Training Center, our indoor facility. It's the biggest in the state of Alabama, right? And two new, our practice fields were revamped. They got film towers on it now, revamped some things in our field house. So I mean, those are the things I think you go, okay, people that have come before you care deeply about winning and being successful here at South Alabama. And I think that is enticing too. It's not just the brick and mortar, but it's knowing that all this energy and effort was put into these things, right? And that people care that deeply about being successful, even when the on-field success has not been there in recent years. And I think that's what, to me, some of that wow factor that has immediately played itself out in recruiting here recently for us.
You shot out to an early 3-0 winning streak to kick off the season. Big part of that was your quarterback, two of our favorite players, Jake Bentley, and then receiver Jalen Tolbert. What did they mean to you in this program this past year?
Well, you're sitting there. It was a pretty surreal moment, right? When just after year one, and I'm standing there on the 20-yard line for senior day, and out trots Jake Bentley and Jalen Tolbert, and those two guys specifically. And you think about, I recruited Jalen when I was here before, right? And he had a chance to go to a Power 5 team in the Big Ten, and he chose to stay home, right? He chose to do something special. And so you see a guy like him and watch his career early on, and then from afar during the middle part, and then get the chance to be a part of his senior year. And then you get to know Jake Bentley, who comes to us by way of South Carolina, and obviously Will Muschamp and Major Applewhite had this, connection from Texas. And so you get to know Jake and you hear his story and all these things. And then all the energy and time and effort and experience that he brings into our program. And it's like, you just realize how special those guys are, right? And one of them built it here from the ground up, right, as a freshman. The other one came in and put everything he had as a senior with his last go round. And we needed that, right? We needed both those guys to be able to come in and do something special. And as much as we wanted to win one or two more games and whatever it may be in year one, those guys laid a foundation that we're going to be able to build off of for years to come. And, I told Jake, man, you only get to be a first-year head coach one time, and there's really not another quarterback that I would have rather, got to experience this with and be able to go back over the years and say, Jake Bentley was my first guy. That was my first quarterback that I got to go through this first season with, and that'll be something special that him and I will share for years to come.
Oh, that's really nice. But he's gone, right? They're gone. So was with the early signing period, which is always a little whack. Do you get everybody you need? Do you not? How did South Alabama do this time? How are we doing?
Well, as always, right? You'll know more on September 3rd, and you'll know in December, right? Here's the deal. It's such a different dynamic, right? You sign about 15 guys, and then you realize, okay, well, we got like 17 spots left, right? Which we knew, right? We want to hold spots for January. You want to make sure guys in the transfer portal, some of these high school players that hold out for a Power 5, right? You're going to make sure you get. But man, you sit there and look, and you're like, boy, for the beginning. the early signing period for a group of 5 program. You move the dial forward with the high school players you brought in. You've got total difference makers in the transfer portal, in terms of Carter Bradley coming with all the experience that he has, and he's a little bit better athlete than maybe Jake walking out the door. Damian Webb is a game changer for us. You look at our offensive production, we did some tremendous things in the passing game, but came, we left too much out there in the run game, and we'll improve in a lot of areas in the run game, but boy, when you have a dynamic, running back that is really an all-purpose back, right? He can do a little bit of everything. That was huge for us. DJ Thomas from Ole Miss transferring back, he's a Saraland kid right up the road. You start looking at some of those guys. 2 kids that played for me, I recruited at Indiana, and CJ Person and DK Bonhomme, now coming, and a D lineman and an outside linebacker. So you see good pieces of the puzzle of guys that can plug and play right now. Upgrades in a lot of ways. And then certainly from a high school standpoint, we're just getting a higher caliber of player right now than what we've gotten in years past. And so moving the dial forward, but we got to develop them now and keep rocking and rolling.
You mentioned Joey Jones being the guy that really stepped out and gave you the opportunity there. Is that a guy you're still in touch with, knowing that he was the first football coach there of the program, and kind of listening to maybe a little bit of his guidance of seeing what his vision is, knowing he was the first guy and keeping the road going?
Yeah. I think I think that was a unique thing for me, right? To be able to come take this head job, is knowing where this program was headed from its inception, right? I wasn't here from the beginning, but I sat in meetings for 2 years from the head coach that did build it from the ground up. And, the first game of the season when we played Southern Miss and got after those boys, which was really fun, right? I got to I invited Joey to the game. And so, I run out of the tunnel and he's right there on the sideline, and he's the first guy I go up, and I wanted him to know, like, listen, none of this is possible. Hancock Whitney's not here, this indoor facility. I'm not here as the head coach, right, without the things and the foundation that Joey Jones laid. And that's really special. And so I think that knowing where we were going, or where we were headed in terms of where we got to go moving forward is a unique perspective. But it is, man. The most exciting thing about being the head coach here at South Alabama is to know that our best days are ahead of us. And there were people that went in before of us to build this program, coaches, players alike, right, that came here to build something special. And now we get to work off of that foundation that was laid.
You mentioned the best days are ahead of you. The landscape of the FunBelt Conference is really changing, and you'll get to go after Southern Miss every single year.
Yeah.
How big is that to add a regional rival like that, as well as the other schools that, really enhance the footprint of the FunBelt Conference?
Pretty great. I think it's great for fans, because from a travel perspective, right, that's one less time that you're going to go to Boone, North Carolina, and 4 more times, right, that you're going to go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So those are positive things for our fan base. I think the regional rivalries are really good. I think it makes it competitive, and anytime things get more competitive, right, you bring out the best in people. Certainly you bring out the worst in times as well, but just in terms of competitiveness, right, you either maximize your opportunity, right, or you get left in the dust. And so I think from a recruiting standpoint, things become more competitive. From an on-field competition is really good. So I think it's a good thing all around. When you look at the way this thing's going to be structured, and hopefully, Troy will be coming over to our side of the league here in the West. And, we were fortunate this year to be able to compete in the games we did, really outside of Tennessee. They kicked our ass, but outside of that, we were competitive in every single game. And with a young team, I think, maybe us and Arkansas State, I think we're the 2 youngest teams in the league. And you start looking at some of the opportunities moving forward. It certainly makes it exciting with the guys we brought in here recruiting. It gives you an urgency to bring the right guys here in January. But you're looking ahead to these next couple of years going, boy, we be a pretty heavy contender for the next few years in the Sun Belt.
Let me ask you something, Coach Wommack. Are you a basketball fan?
Am I a basketball fan?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a basketball fan. I love watching it and all those things. It's always fun, in some ways, watching something that you can't do yourself, and you come to appreciate that, right?
Me for all sports. Yes,
that's right. That's right. But no, it's actually, I think there's a lot to be learned, from basketball, particularly in the recruiting world right now, because they were already operating in the portal. In terms of, there was a little bit more of transfers going on and bringing new teams in, and all of a sudden one or two guys leave and you have to replace them immediately. And that's the world we're living in. So, Richie Riley, our basketball coach, did a tremendous job in portal recruiting over the last couple of years and transfers and bringing guys in. And so getting some of those dynamics from him and then watching the way they operate as an offense, obviously, 5 guys on the court, a completely different deal schematically, but at the same time, you start realizing, okay, even for their philosophy is you're simple enough and yet diverse enough that you keep people off their marker, but you also got to be able to let these transfers come in and plug and play immediately. So it really changes the dynamic of how you do things. And so, I think there's always something to be learned from other sports.
Well, basketball Jags are off to a good start. And we actually did talk about that, Tibbs and I, a couple of days ago, about what the Jaguars are doing on the basketball court. Yeah. Would that become sort of a new paradigm shift for how others in the Sun Belt will do? And really, it's interesting that you said you sort of paralleled that with football recruiting, because football recruiting isn't a whole new world with transfers and NIL and all these things that are just completely different, early signing days. So that was interesting that you had mentioned that. I was just wondering if you had seen any Jags games.
I had, but and we are fast and we are athletic. We got to we got to slow down a couple. We turned the ball over a couple of times early, which is probably to be expected with a new group of guys. But man, they play fast and they play hard. And Richie's done a tremendous job of building a culture, year in and year out, where you do have new guys that are coming in and old guys leaving and all that stuff. And it's just becoming at a faster rate, right? It's different than developing guys over 4 years and they're leaving. Now it's like 1 and 2 year contracts, right? And so we're going through some of the same things, and we'll continue to go through some of the same things. And so I think there's something to be learned from that. But Richie really has helped in kind of laying the foundation, even though it's a different sport, and how you can operate stuff.
Your offensive coordinator, Major Applewhite, I think every time there's any job opening, it's going to be Major Applewhite. It's going to be Major Applewhite. How have you kind of been able to hold on to him? I mean, I know he's only been there the 1 year, but been able to hold on to him. And what does he do to kind of bring the attention that you want to bring to your program?
Well, Major has had obviously a pretty amazing career at this point, and he's only, young 40s, but here's a guy that obviously had tremendous success at Texas and is beloved by their fan base. And then, quickly escalates to being Nick Saban's offensive coordinator at 27 years old at Alabama, right? And then he goes back with Matt Brown as a co-offensive coordinator, goes with Tom Herman to Houston, then becomes the head coach at Houston. So Major has some tremendous things and experiences, both success and adversity in an early part of his career that we've learned from, right? And that we're able to utilize, the things that he's done well and the things that he's trial and error and all those things moving forward into our program. And that's part of what I wanted, right? I wanted that experience. I wanted someone that is, seen the highs and the lows of college football and knows how to navigate it moving forward. And that to me was really awesome. Mage and I first met each other, I guess now 2 years ago, we're all great relationships in Mobile start at Veets Bar downtown, where all the Senior Bowl, scouts, and they all kind of hang out. And we were both down here met up, talked about what was kind of next, what did he envision was the next opportunity in his mind, and started realizing that a lot of the things that we see philosophically were aligned. And so we ended up connecting, talking, and then a year later, I get the call from Joel Erdman to be the head coach at South Alabama, and the first text message out of, telling my mom and dad I got the job, right, was to Major Applewhite. And, Major had other suiters.
That would be us. I appreciate that.
Well, not naming names, you know what I mean? But I think I did one of the best jobs in recruiting I've ever done. And to be able to convince him and Julie that this was the right opportunity for them. And so we actually cleared the building. This was, down during that time to make sure nothing got out, that he was coming down to visit us. So we cleared the stadium, we cleared the field house, all those things, brought him down for a few hours, loved every bit of it on both sides. And I offered him the job that night. And then soon after that, we're recruiting our tails off for guys like Jake Bentley. So really, really special to be able to have him and his experiences.
We'll end you with this one there, Coach. You have a political science degree. When coaching is over, will we have to refer to you as Governor Wommack?
That's pretty good. I was interested in politics and political theory, and frankly, I was like, you mean I get to write less papers and argue a little bit more in class? That makes sense to me. So I got a degree in political science. I'll be honest, I am not very politically savvy and do not keep up with things to the level that I need to. I'm sure that comes as a shock to you guys from a head football coach, but no, I think, I did. At one point, I thought my backup plan, I've wanted to be a football coach since I was 6 years old, right? So that's been my dream and my passion since day one. But, I think my backup plan was law school, which seems a bit lofty now as I look back on that. But I find politics fascinating. And I think at the end of the day, right, you're trying to cast a vision for a bunch of people, whether it's football, whether it's politics, whatever, and then holding people accountable to accomplish that vision together. And that really is, I think, what makes any great leader successful, right? Can you cast vision on one hand, and on the other hand, hold everyone relentlessly accountable to the detail of accomplishing that vision over and over and over again? And so, makes a good head coach and probably makes a good governor too.
Well, Governor Wommack, we greatly appreciate you joining us here on FunBelt Podcast.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Jay's up and Leo.
Driving on stormy nights can become so difficult that you may wish you had the eyes of a night creature, like an owl or a tarsier. What's a tarsier? Well, it's like a... Look, it doesn't matter. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades reduce blur and glare, clearing away rain, so you can drive even better than a tarsier, whatever that is. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades.